might need to say that. Sorry, thank you, Councillor Webster. We just need, I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding about the process. We just need to clarify this, because remember, whilst we're making this decision, in the parallel universe of the hearings panel, decisions are getting made. So Mrs. Pruitt, can you just explain that?
So I'm just really reiterating what Mr. Dogood has said a number of times. The 2,000 and so sites that we have consistently said that we should retain on the sites of value, as sites of value schedule, we as officers have said they should be retained because we already believe that they have been accurately identified and mapped. So if you look at the resolution and the amendment, which is under A, what it basically says, remove them until such time that all sites and places have been accurately identified and mapped. Well, the ones that we wish to retain on that schedule, we believe we have met that. It's the 1,387 sites that were part of the officer recommendation, which we clearly, as officers, feel, and you in March this year agreed to put forward to the independent hearings panel as sites that should be removed from the schedule. Now, we can indeed wait, as Member Taipuri has suggested, until the independent hearings panel comes out with its recommendation in July next year, and unless they heard contrary evidence at the hearing, they might very well support the council's recommendation to remove the 1,387 sites. But what we're, I suppose, raising today is that while we wait until that decision in July, there are 1,387 potential applicants or landowners who, if they do want to do anything on their land, which this control impacts on, we will be putting them through a resource consent, knowing that officers do not have any information against which to assess that application, so that we will be granting their resource consents. So we're putting them through a process that we think cannot be, substantiated, but that's different from removing all of the 2,000 odd sites that we actually do have the information for, and we are recommending you retain.
You should have no problem with the resolution.
Okay. So,
Can I just ask a question on that, please?
hang on, I've got Councillor Wayne Walker has a question, and Councillor Fletcher.
Yeah, a couple of questions. First of all, a question for the mover, and that's you, Mr. Quacks. Just have a question for the mover and the seconder. And
sorry, Councillor, no, we can ask questions
or
of
through you,
our staff.
Madam Chair. It just goes to the motion up there, and I just wonder if the mover would consider an addition which would capture the removal of these 1,373 sites. It's just in addition to that.
Well, I think that's, if you find, that's probably the recommendation on page 123. So we are, you either, to just manage this, you either want to just leave everything as it is while we do more work. Member Taipuri's question. You want to get rid of the whole lot of private land, Member Quacks's, or if both those fail, we go back to let's simply remove the sites where there's no good and proven reason to have them there while we carry on doing the work, which is what I will personally be supporting.
So I just had a question then around this, the impact of this. If there are sites that have been accurately identified and mapped, I'm assuming that under this motion those sites remain. Is that the case? Just for clarity?
No, they don't.
That's the point that was made, Councillor. If they're on private land, the recommendation as it is says that they will be removed. So
no, but it says until such a time.
that all.
No, that's right now.
Yep.
Madam Chair, I think, from the chair, so the direction has been that and this is what the, Penny and the team are saying, is that we're in danger of completely circumventing a legal process that we're presently in charge of by moving that recommendation. Is that right, John?
Yeah, well, the hearings are ongoing. We've confirmed a position at the hearings. We'd now be potentially doing something quite different. But as Pirrett mentioned before, I mean, one interpretation of A is that the 2,200, some of which are on private land, would remain in the unitary plan because they are accurately identified and mapped.
Well,
That's what I'm trying to clear up, Madam Chair.
If they are, they are. If they are, they are.
That's what I'm trying to clear up.
So
But I don't
This is
think
taking
that
it out.
is what the resolution of councillor Quack's
not be the
is.
intent, but
No.
that's an interpretation of it. So that
Well, we need to know which interpretation is valid here, Madam Chair.
I think the intent of this, if I understand it, is that sites of cultural significance be removed from private property.
Well, it
Until
is.
such time.
It is not clear, Madam Chair. In which case, can we get it clear?
Well, then I'm going to have to repeat myself again. We have successfully mapped and established which sites can rigorously be applied to land, both public and private. What we're saying in the original officer's recommendation, on the sites to which this rigour cannot be applied, let's remove them. Therefore, with the greatest of endeavour to try and mediate a solution, councillor Quack's is then somewhat redundant because the work has been done. We've said, we already know which ones can stick.
Well, this can
Mrs. Pirrett.
just ensure that. I think the council wants to ensure. We've already supported this in the past.
Councillor Lee, let's just get the clarification from Ms.
So
Pirrett.
I think that the issue with A is that there is no mechanism to put them back. If you resolve to remove them, and then we confirm once again that those 2,000 have been accurately identified and mapped, there is no way that we can put them back on the sites in place of value overlay. So that's the concern here. It's not about whether or not we can accurately identify or map them, because we can, the ones that are within the 2,000. It's just once you've resolved to take them off, we have no way of putting them back on again. So it's a subtle issue, but that's why this one is problematic in terms of, as John has talked about, the fact that we've actually presented to the Independent Hearings Panel. We have had a lot of submitters from all spectrums on this matter, put time and effort into presenting at the Hearings Panel. I suggest, while technically we could withdraw this, there would be a real moral implication to the council's reputation if we did that. So, but that's a choice for the
We've
uh,
been
committee.
assured that the sites
Councillor
remaining
Lee.
are identified, are they not? And that's all councillor Quacks is doing, confirming
Next speaker I
that.
have is councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps some of the comments I'm going to make you will anticipate, but I want to put them in the context of the fact that the Mayor is absolutely right to champion the history, all of the history of Tamaki Makaurau. But my reading of this is this amendment being put forward sensibly by Councillor Quacks and Councillor Penrose is not inconsistent with that. And the qualification is on until such time. Now, I'm finding it really hard who to believe here today, because on the one hand, when we asked to break down on those 2,000 plus sites in terms of the percentage of the private, the other additional information, we couldn't get that information. And yesterday, some of us were involved in a really, I think, sensible discussion around how we don't want to relitigate things, that we need to be able to make decisions and move on. But all of the way through this process for the unitary plan, there have been those of us who are saying, let's have the evidence. Let's know the basis for which we are taking decisions. Let's have all of the information there. Let's absolutely be clear about what we're voting on. This is a very good example of, yet again, I think there's confusion around the table. I cannot believe that we couldn't revisit this if officers could then produce the material that some of us have been asking for today in terms of the identification of all of those issues around those private sites that have been put forward here. I think it does a disservice to the relationship that we have with mana whenua that we didn't have this work properly documented from the very beginning. But this is just one of a series of concerns that I have had with the unitary, I'm really struggling to hear there. Thank you. Right from day one with the unitary plan, there was a view that if we took it slow and steady and staged it, with all of the information there, we would have probably had a faster result in the long term. I'm still of that view, and therefore I'm supporting the amendment. I would really like officers to be quite clear if they had intended that we would have the comfort around those remaining 2,000 sites. Frankly, I would have expected them to come better prepared today. I don't have the confidence around that, and therefore I'm supporting the amendment being put forward by Quacks and Penrose on the basis that this can come back to this committee, but that work needs to be demonstrated that we have the confidence in it. So thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to speak.
Your question, Councillor Walker?
I've had, I still have uncertainty, Madam Chair, and that was what my question was about. And really, I think that uncertainty should be resolved by the movers.
So
I can only implore them to do that because
Well,
one
one
of
of the
them's not here.
officers is outside talking to
okay,
them.
why don't we come back to
So,
you, Councillor?
so I would just put to you what sort of wording is required to make it clear that in an instance where the sites and places have been accurately identified and mapped at this point in time, that they remain.
Which is, that's actually what the request was originally in the officer's recommendation, is where the sites have been accurately mapped, that we retain those, and where we're unable to prove the accuracy of that mapping, that for the moment they be removed while further work is done. That was the original recommendation in the officer's report. So if this is lurching its way towards that, then, you know, we may be able to establish that, but Councillor Quacks and Mrs Pirrett may have something to report. Have you any clarity, extra clarity, Councillor Quacks or Mrs Pirrett?
Councillor Quacks is screaming out.
We'll just, so the question was from Councillor Walker, how do we make Councillor Quacks's and Councillor Penrose's recommendation any clearer? In other words, addressing the issue of where we've accurately mapped and identified sites and places on private land, do they stick? The point I was trying to make is they're actually working their way towards the original recommendation on page 123, which is let's keep the ones that are stuck, and the ones that we haven't proven, let's get rid of them. While more work is done over the next few years.
Yep.
So I'm listening to both sides of this debate. My sense is that the original recommendation on page 123 either equally doesn't address all of the concerns around the table or addresses most of the concerns in this slightly confused debate that have been raised. So, Mrs Pirrett, would you like to just comment?
I think it would be useful, John, just so it's very clearly understood, that you explain why officers believe the 2,000 odd sites should remain on the sites of value schedule in terms of the accuracy of the information that you have to support that belief, okay?
So having looked at all 3,600 sites in terms of mapping and the documentation in behind the mapping and looking at things like GPS coordinates, we have identified 2,213 sites that are accurately mapped, many of which are on private property. In addition to that, there are more sites that are accurately mapped, but we are recommending in the original report that they're removed, and those are the ones where they're accurately mapped but mana whenua haven't confirmed a value. So as it currently stands, my advice is that that would actually result in an increase over and above what we've recommended in the original report, because there are the 2,213, we were saying we now believe there's accurate mapping based on the documentation, based on the GPS coordinates. But there are also other sites that there is accurate mapping that we've recommended to remove because mana whenua haven't confirmed value consistent with the decision in March. So, I mean, that recommendation as it stands potentially is an increase over and above what we were recommending. It will be more sites actually staying on than the 2,213.
That's my point. Okay, so I've got a question from councillor Wood and
Well,
then I've got-
well, my question is, firstly, procedure, it's procedural. You have never moved your, the motion in the motion in the agenda. So I'm finding it hard to know what this amendment of councillor Quack's is precisely does amend, because it doesn't mention the it may amend that, but that I don't know if that really is
the
very
substantive
kosher.
motion.
Well,
is-
anyway, that's so.
You asked a question, councillor Wood, and I'll
Yeah.
answer it. The substantive motion is Member Taiperi and Member Ngāmani's recommendation. They moved a recommendation before anyone had moved the recommendations on the agenda, and that's just how it is. First up, best dressed, Member Taiperi and Member Ngāmani moved and seconded the substantive recommendation, which is there. Councillor Quacks and Councillor Penrose have now moved an amendment, which we're trying to make sense of. So,
Well, okay,
your
I just
question.
want to speak to it. I find it hard to get my handle on, or get understanding of these numbers, because we talk about 3,600 coming, well, the 7,000 came down to 3,600. Then in March, we removed approximately 750 sites of value where an accurate location not being confirmed, 70 sites of value that were not of Maori origin or duplicates, and any sites that were to be identified by mana whenua as not being of value. So and then you add the sum in from what we had today, and I get that figure as 2,193. And therefore you subtract that from 3,600 and I'm back to 1,407. Is that correct?